when Dodge built the Hellcat, they did a pretty outstanding job building a car that could take an abuse, well, that could make some serious power and take the abuse of constant track battling, drag racing, pretty much everything. But they still left quite a bit on the table, and that's what we're gonna do today, is try to extract a little bit more power out of this Dodge Challenger Hellcat. All right, fortunately, this car is stock enough as it just has an intake and some muffler deletes that we can actually do some baseline pulls to find out what kind of power it's making before we decide that we want to change things and potentially try to make some more power. So I've still got my scanner hooked up so I can data log the stock tune. Nothing has been done to the computer on this car. In fact, I have a new computer down here in the box that we're going to have to install, and I'll get into that in a second. So first thing we're going to do is do a pull. So these SRTs are kind of hard to get into dyno mode if you can't do it with a handheld. So what we're going to do is down here on the traction control button, you notice if I press it once, it just says electronic stability control sport. If I press it again, it says track. If I press it again, it comes back on. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the button down. I'm holding it. We're going to see in just a second, electronic stability control off. This is about as good as you can do without being able to actually use a scan tool to put it into dyno mode, which we might have to do in a minute. Other things that you need to make sure that the park assist is off, otherwise these cars do some weird stuff. And then we're going to go through the modes here in the SRT menu, and we want to make sure that we're in the full power, red key, everything is ready to rock. So we're gonna go ahead and see traction is off, suspension says street, which doesn't really matter, but the power is the 700 plus. So we're going to give this a rip and see if we have any traction issues, and hopefully we don't, not traction issues as much as traction control issues. And hopefully we don't, and then it kicks into the default off mode. It's a little easier with the manual transmission cars. The autos get really mad on the dyno. So anyway, we'll see what happens here. We're gonna go into fourth gear. All right, so you see right there, it just said, oh geez, what's going on? And it kicked the brake, ABS. Basically because it's seeing that the rear wheels are spinning, but the front wheels aren't. We're gonna go up here into fourth gear. Gives us a ratio of about 45. This might be just a crazy fast pull. If it is, we might have to go to fifth or add some load. So next thing I wanna do is make sure that my scanner is scanning, because I wanna save these logs. And here we go. Pull number one. Pretty good. Power you're probably not going to be able to see, but we're at 641 horse and 628 torque. So we're going to go ahead and do another pull here, just because we're doing baselines. We want to make sure that the power goes up. If the power goes up, we'll keep doing pulls until it comes down. About 2,000 RPMs, 2,500. A mile an hour crank off. 137 miles an hour. So it looks like it lost 4 horsepower on that pull from heat and gained 3 foot-pounds of torque, and I'll show the dyno graphs when we're all done. We might need to add some load to this, just because these pulls are so fast, it's hard to do tuning on fast pulls. Fast pulls are good for doing horsepower numbers because there's less heat generation, but they do make tuning kind of difficult. So these cars have, sorry about the air compressor, these cars have a built-in security module inside the ECU, which has to be bypassed in order to tune them. So what most people do, because Chrysler uses that as one of the ways to track warranty on these, they can see if the PCM has been modified from stock. So what people do, and what this customer is doing, is they buy a new one, and then they modify the new one and leave their old one stock, so that if at any time they need to do warranty work or whatever, not that I'm saying that anybody should do warranty work after they modify their car, it's kind of unethical, but if they did need to put it back to stock, they can just put the old computer back in and it's bone stock. HPtuners provides this little quick, it just says, here's your new thing, use the newest version of their software and make sure after you install it you clear the DTCs, because it will have a lot of them. So that's what this is. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to install this, and it's located right up here under the cowl on this car. It's located right up in here, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get out. And now we're going to come inside the car and go ahead and do what that paper said. And whoops, lost my controller. Let's see if we have codes that need to be blown out. So now we're going to key on. Go.
Scan active.
We're going to connect to the car.
GPS connected.
Read codes. We're gonna have a whole bunch. So we're gonna clear DTCs. Give it a second. Shut the door because that's annoying. Let's read again. Probably gonna have some permanents. Yeah. So these are all permanent codes. Permanent codes won't go away until it's seen enough drive cycles. So I'm going to go ahead and do another clear just because. And then I'm going to go ahead and key off, key back on. We're going to start it and see if we have any codes, which we might, and it might run very poorly for a second. So there's still a code, but it runs. So we're going to go ahead and shut it off, and I've got a throttle error. So I'm I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off. Key back on. We're gonna read DTCs again. And then we're gonna clear DTCs again. And sometimes this can take 2 or 3 shots. I've had it take as many as 4. I'm gonna key off again. Start it again. All right, so the check engine light's off now. So that's a good sign. Only took 2 tries on this one. Like I said, sometimes it takes 3 or 4, and I don't know why it does that. They're just kind of finicky when it comes to clearing codes. You can see the little lightning bolt is gone now. That little lightning bolt is an indication that it hasn't been able to sync its throttle actuator. That's pretty important, but we have throttle. So everything's good here. I'm gonna go ahead and start tuning this. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shut it back off. And then we're gonna open up the VCM editor, and we're gonna pull the image. All right, so we're pulling up the editor here. Blah, blah, blah. And we are gonna pull the image off this thing. Gather info. And read. This is gonna take a minute, so I'm not gonna go through this whole process, but we're gonna read this image and then we're gonna start tuning it. It looks like it's gonna take about 10 minutes. You wanna make sure your headlights and stuff are off while you're doing this, just because if they're not, they'll drain the battery pretty quick. And these cars are kind of notorious for killing the battery. You also want to have like the HVAC stuff off and the radio off and everything else. You can put them on a solid state charger, but sometimes that messes with the CAN bus from what I've noticed. So it's better to just have a good battery when you do this first read. All right, we have the image read off the computer, and we are good to start tuning. So I'm not going to go over this process. There's a lot of stuff that has to get done, and honestly I just don't have time to show everybody what all needs to be changed. But I'm going to go through here, get this map all populated, get it loaded to the car, and do a pull and see where we land. So now we're going to write this image. I've gone through and changed a bunch of stuff, so this should be good for a base pull. Just going to check fueling and timing on this pull and see where we're at, and then we'll start increasing and or decreasing as needed. So this takes just a few seconds. The writes on this are so much faster than the read because it's only writing over what is changed, which also prevents it from potentially bricking ECUs and whatnot. It's one of the reasons why I really like HPtuners versus like a Diablo or an SCT, is it can do these quick writes, and you have basically no chance, if you just do right calibration, of bricking an ECU. Now if you do write all, then it's actually going to go in and do a deep write, and if you do that, there is the possibility that you can brick the ECU. So just got to wait 10 seconds here. We're at about 7. That should be enough. And write completed. Close. Come over here. Let's close my log. Now we're going to go ahead and connect to vehicle and see what happens when we fire this beast up. First start on the tune. Start scanning. Everything looks good. Alright, well, it fired up. That's the first sign. No check engine lights. So we'll let this warm up, let the fuel trims all do their thing, and then we're going to start by doing a pull. so here we are all done. Really good gains. So our max power that we're seeing now is 704.6 and 644 foot-pounds, whereas before on that second pull we were at 637. I guess the first pull was a little bit higher at 641 and 628 torque. So you can see super significant gains, especially up top. That's a pretty hefty. Let me clear off this other one here. You can see right there, that's, you know, 760 or 676 horse to 637 horse right there at 6,000. Actually at 6,000 on the dot. We're 681 horse and we were at 634. And I'm letting it carry out a little further because these things really like to eat up top, especially when they have a few mods to them. And you can see just everywhere we've got a little bit more power and torque. So it's really solid. One of the big things that we do is we still allow it to enrich. We want it to be rich up top, but we don't let it enrich clear down here into the low mid tens. And that's just, it's so fat that it just kills any of the car's ability to make power. Still, if you were to run this car from gear to gear to gear, it would actually start to enrich even more. Recently ran into this on one that was tuned on pretty heavy ethanol that I did the other day, and it was enriching a little too much, so it was kind of falling on its face at 120. So we go ahead and remove some of that enrichment, but we still want it to enrich as the RPMs and temperature and everything go up, especially because this is still a pump gas car. On ethanol, we'll turn off some of those enrichments, but pump gas, we do want it to be able to enrich as it does pull after pull. Anyway, there's a nice tuned Hellcat. Look at that beautiful red big blower. This thing's pretty stock. Like I was saying, it's just got this AFE power Momentum GT intake, and then it has a muffler delete exhaust. It's basically stock exhaust, stock header, stock cats, so it should have no problem with emissions. We didn't go in and turn off anything or modify any of the emissions equipment on the car, so it should have no issues getting through emissions, but yet it still makes, I mean, these are advertised at 707. I'm at 704.6. I bet if I went to smoothing 0, we'd be there. Oh, 708.79, yeah, so smoothing 0, it's a little bit more raw data. It doesn't interpolate between samples as much on the dyno. I could talk about that for a minute. Smoothing on the dyno is basically as the wheel spins and this roller spins, there's a toothed wheel underneath there, and that toothed wheel has a sensor. It's actually an optical sensor that's detecting each one of those teeth as it passes through. I may have an extra one. Let's see here. I think I do. Yeah. Oh, here's a broken one. So this is a broken optical sensor. Basically, normally it makes a little U shape, and the toothed wheel passes in between that right there, which then allows, let's see, you probably can't see it on there so well. So then as the toothed wheel passes in between this, it basically has a little camera that sees the wheel as it goes through, and it detects speed of the roller based on that. And then it knows how heavy the roller is and how much load, if we're using load from the load cells, is being applied to the roller, and it uses that to calculate the momentum, basically how fast the roller is being accelerated, which is then how it calculates its horsepower. So it's pretty cool. But when you're smoothing, what happens is there are little variations in power, little small accelerations and decelerations that happen between the teeth on the wheel itself, and just all kinds of, I mean, the engine itself is making power, and you have individual pulses, and so the V8s tend to have much smoother graphs than 4-cylinders, but if it was a 4-cylinder car that doesn't rev super high, a lot of times you'll see little variations. All-wheel drive cars, because there's a lot more going on in the drivetrain, you tend to see wigglier graphs. But even smooth 0 here, we're not super wiggly. You can see it's pretty solid. So anyway, that's what smoothing is. It basically just interpolates between samples, because it only samples so fast. So it has a sample, a sample, a sample, and it kind of smooths the line between the samples. So that's the smoothing. 5 is pretty standard, makes the lines look nice and smooth. 0 makes them look a little choppier, but you usually get a little higher power numbers out of 0. So we'd be 645 and 708. So still a what is that, 53 horsepower gain? So pretty hefty. I guess that's 63 horsepower gain. Dang. Anyway, 63 horse on a Hellcat from just a tune. I think that's well worth the money. You probably can't put any other parts on this car that'd make that kind of power gain. So that's what I have for this video. Be sure, if you enjoyed the content you saw here, that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. That way you can keep seeing these videos every single week, if not sooner. Thanks for watching.